Tucked away in the corner of Lowndes Square in London, amongst the rows of huge nondescript buildings, is one premises that stands out. Walking south behind a small park, the trees clear to reveal a huge antenna adorning the roof of numbers 34 to 36. But what is it, and what is it used for? Well, it's a diplomatic site that was the stage for a government scandal 20 years ago, and also an important communications site. So sit back while I tell you the interesting story surrounding this place. Immediately after 9/11, as Tony Blair publicly praised the role of Pervez Musharraf's regime in helping to combat Islamic terrorism, MI5 was busy infiltrating this building. Agents disguised as workmen removed documents, tracked staff, and tried to plant bugs in a top-secret operation that was meant to be a great triumph in the war on terrorism. The whole saga became an embarrassing diplomatic incident between Britain and a key Commonwealth ally. There was a series of blunders, it was claimed. An officer arrived for a secret meeting in the street and forgot to remove their MI5 ID badge, and another who had already infiltrated the High Commission risked the security of the operation by returning for a second attempt in another guise. Staff at the High Commission left codes for a cipher machine for sending secret messages on yellow post-it notes stuck to the wall, and inside the offices of military diplomats, filing cabinets were left open with details of purchases of equipment. The diplomats handed over confidential documents to an MI5 agent disguised as a workman who promised to pulp them. The main agent in the operation was a man codenamed Notation. His involvement began when, as a building contractor, he was invited to quote for renovation work on the High Commission, which was in desperate need of work. He noticed a lack of security. Rooms accessible without a security pass were stacked with documents marked confidential. After seeing this, he decided to alert the British security services. The contractor left messages on MI5's hotline, but there was no response. Instead, he went on to contact the CIA at its offices in Langley, Virginia. He was then contacted by a man calling himself Rick, to whom he handed plans of the building at a meeting at the US Embassy. Later, the contractor met Claire, who claimed she worked for the government. The contractor was given the codename Notation and instructions to provide descriptions of layout, communications, and security. The next task was to take an MI5 agent, codenamed Graham, into the High Commission. This too was successfully accomplished, and two men who worked at the building of particular interest to MI5 were identified. The next job was getting hold of the documentation for pulping. Notation was worried by what he saw as inefficiency and the fear he would be abandoned if things went wrong. He wanted out. He met with Claire's boss at a hotel in Victoria. Notation was handed an envelope crammed with £50 banknotes and told not to contact Claire again. His life as a spy was over. However, he blew the whistle on the attempt to bug the Pakistani High Commission and fled to the continent, threatening to reveal more about the aborted spying operation. The head of the West London building firm he worked for said that Notation had simply vanished together with his girlfriend. The issue is understood to have been raised privately at a pre-arranged meeting in London soon after between the then Foreign Secretary Jack Straw and the then Pakistani Foreign Minister Mahmood Qusuri. The British High Commissioner in Islamabad, Mark Lyle Grant, was summoned to the Pakistani Foreign Ministry too to explain the bugging plan. Pakistan said that it would make an official complaint, while a Foreign Office spokesman said, "The official comment is that we never comment on security matters. I'm not going to be drawn in on confidential diplomatic exchanges between the Pakistan government and the British government." Most countries employ radio systems to communicate with their embassies and diplomatic missions around the world. This is something I've covered in great detail, and you can find links to 2 videos on this topic in the description below. However, I thought we'd look in a bit more detail on communications between Pakistan and its diplomatic sites, Lowndes Square included. Naturally, there isn't masses of information, so I'll give you what I know, and some of it is historic. Pakistan is peculiar in that it has 2 Ministry of Foreign Affairs, one in Islamabad and another in Karachi. It's tasked in managing Pakistan's diplomatic and consular relations as well as its foreign policy. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is also responsible for maintaining Pakistani government offices abroad with diplomatic and consular status. Call signs for their radios are ASP-32 in Islamabad and ASK-21 in Karachi. London is just one of many Pakistani diplomatic sites that send and receive HF communications. The antenna above the London Embassy is a log periodic type. It looks similar to, if not the same, as the Roden Schwartz HL451. It'll likely be suitable for 5,000 to 30,000 kHz and be able to handle RF powers in excess of 1 kW. Common frequencies that have been noted are as follows, but of course there have been and will be others in use over the years. There are many international call signs used, for example ASS6 for Ankara, Turkey, ASP23 for Dhaka, Bangladesh, ASM41 for Moscow, Russia, ASZ57 for Rome, Italy, and ASN69 for Stockholm, Sweden. Other intercepts include the Pyongyang Korean relay on 9047.5 kHz via Deutsche Post in Berlin, Germany. Over the years, Pakistan has used a handful of different modes for its diplomatic communications. Twinplex, also known as F7B4 and Twinplex Sitor, is a diplex 4FSK ARQ mode developed by Mackay Radio and Telegraph Company based in New York City in the early 1950s. This mode was used by Interpol, the United Nations, and many government diplomatic services all over the world, including Pakistan. Twinplex uses the standard 4-letter cell call scheme by which sending and receiving stations can call each other and establish communications. When a link is established, details of a frequency elsewhere are usually passed over, making communications hard to detect and follow. Messages generally consist of groups of letters which are fed into the cipher machine I mentioned earlier. Other messages can be decoded and are unencrypted. Decoders from Hoka and Wavecom all included modules to read Twinplex. Sitor A is one of the two modes of Sitor, which stands for Simplex Teletype over Radio. Along with Sitor B, it's often used in broadcasts of navigational and other warnings from maritime stations. In addition, the Czech intelligence services, as well as the Egyptian diplomatic service, have been known to use these modes. It's unclear whether Pakistan still uses either of these for diplomatic communications. They also used ITA-2 or International Telegraph Alphabet Number 2. The ITA-2 standard is used widely with historical cipher machines and isn't used by Pakistan today. USB voice traffic is also used after links have been established using Twinplex. Both offline and online encryption are known to have been used, and operators often mention USB carrier frequencies directly, for example QSY 13445, which corresponds to an actual frequency of 13446.7 kHz. Now let's look at some example messages. These were decoded by a listener in the early to mid 1990s with mixed results. This is an offline encrypted message from the Rabat Embassy to Islamabad, sent on November 20th, 1992. As you can see, it consists of strings of letters that would have been fed into a cipher machine. This is another portion of an offline encrypted message from Brussels to Islamabad on the 21st of May 1996. Again, it's just strings of letters to be deciphered. This is an online encrypted message from the 31st of July 1996. I found the top line interesting. Next is a message from Islamabad from the 17th of September 1996, which is mostly deciphered and makes for interesting reading. This is another message sent from Islamabad to New Delhi, with Ankara copied in. This was sent on the 17th of November 1996 and is again mostly deciphered. Here we can see a message from Ashgabat to Islamabad from sometime in December 1996. This one wasn't deciphered very well, so it makes it hard to read. And finally, an offline encrypted message from the embassy in Tripoli to Islamabad on the 12th of January 1997. So that's all I know about this amazing and impressive radio site tucked away in central London. There are hundreds of other embassy sites across central London, but very few have visible radio communications infrastructure in place today. If you'd like to know more about the Bulgarian embassy, or maybe the Algerian embassy, then follow the links in the description below.